Good evening, citizens. My name is Ban Shattersong, former captain of the Bloody Hands Mercenary Company. And whilst the labyrinth might be a dark and lonely place, occasionally we can run into other citizens, maybe their souls, who aren't quite dead just yet. And today is one of those occasions. So with me, I have Matteo Edgestalker. Matteo, say hello.
Hi, folks. I'm Matteo Edgestalker, formerly Itamale Niguera of the Brest Coast. You'll be hearing more about that. It's a bit dark in here, isn't it?
It is quite, yeah. It's I've got this really lovely damp spot, just the corner between the left and the right hand turn. Um, I probably should read the page, the wiki page on the actual labyrinth itself. I've got no idea how to describe it. I'm taking it literally, so hopefully that's accurate. But thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
I guess the not the sole reason, but let's be real. The majority of the reason I've dragged you in, bag over your head and cuffed to a chair, of course, is the
Sounds
certain
like a standard
skirmish.
Friday night.
It, it's the skirmish you had at E2. For those of
Mm-hmm.
you listening who aren't aware, essentially Matteo here is an official hero of not just Navarre, although that is true, but also the Empire at large for pretty much single-handedly winning a skirmish to rescue some freeborn prisoners. That's definitely going to be the main event, let's say, of this evening. But we're also going to talk about, talk about Mateo's backstory, so some of your hots and nots from some of the previous summits.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, formerly of the Brass Coast, it'd be really interesting to find out a bit about that as well. And then also, I understand you do a little bit of brewing as well, brewing your own liqueurs. So
Yep,
definitely keen to feel maybe drop that in at the end as a shameless plug and get some business on the Anvil field.
will do. Will do.
Brilliant. So in a question that no one's ever really asked me at Empire, um, what's your backstory?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been asked that in play either. Um, which is a shame because I kind of like hearing about people's backstories, but they so often tend to be relegated to a Word document somewhere that no one ever opens.
Mm,
Uh, so Matteo started out Itamale Niguera in the Brest Coast. Um, was born in Feroz, and I gave him
for Roz.
a reasonably untrue backstory, and then all the tragedy happened once I hit field. Um, so he uh, sort of he was being raised to sort of take over from his grandmother as Domiro. Um,
Is that the leader of the family?
kind of, yeah.
Gotcha.
It's sort of the brand equivalent.
Gotcha. Yeah.
His mother was a corsair. His father was a scrivener. He really liked fighting. Um, he found out early on. He had sort of so I, out of character, have scoliosis, fibromyalgia, hypermobility. So broadly,
Gotcha.
I'm a physical wreck all the time. It's terrible. So gave Matteo sort of the in-world equivalent of that. So he realized he was never going to be exceptional at the fighting, but he stuck at it, ambition and all that,
Mm,
and he got pretty good. I am decidedly decent with the spear. Um, and not long after he passed his citizenship test, he was about 14, got in a training accident. Oh, that's Bark. Worst kept secret at Anvil, Matteo was a briar.
yeah.
Um,
Brilliant.
uh, every year or so there was this striding would pass through, and they'd stay for a while and chat and share stories and trade and that sort of thing. The Swiftbark striding, they were sort of black sheep because they were mostly briars.
Fantastic.
Um, and one year Matteo up and went with them. It was about 17ish. I spent a year on the trods with them and saw all the good things in the Empire and all the not so good things in the Empire. The
It's okay to
militia
say
being
Dawn.
the good guys and sometimes also not being the good guys. People using virtue defenses for things that are very definitely not virtuous. And of course, yes, the Valorn
Mm,
doing Valorn stuff. Um, so a lot of that the Guerra in him was not happy with, and he decided I need to do something. So he went back home for the last time and set off as a Navari. Um, and yeah, that was broadly the backstory. He ended up in Herkinia, linked up with the Edgestalkers, came to Anvil. Parents were fine in the backstory,
Hey,
nothing big
yes,
tragic.
yes, no.
And then I get to Anvil, E4 2019. Oh dear, we're signing Feroz over to the Grendel.
What a time
Mm,
to arrive. I think
yeah.
I remember seeing a couple of freeborn sat by the standing circle after that decision had been made. The sort of the final sort of Sunday at that particular event, and my favourite little, I don't know, icy joke at that point was, "Wow, a burn." Even Sarut felt that burn, and I said
Oof.
that maybe a little bit too close to them, and they got quite annoyed, understandably
Yeah.
annoyed. But so that was the first event you'd been at Empire.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
That
with
was my
the
first.
fantastic, so the freeborn side of the story that hasn't been done in play at all.
No.
Gotcha. Oh, nice. That's really cool. Like, how have you what I guess like what drove you towards having that part of your backstory? Was it kind of a 50-50 when you were just making your character between freeborn and Navari?
Well, I'd been considering Empire for a few years, reading the wiki here and there, and I liked Navarre obviously, and I like Wintermark, and I like the Brass Coast. So those were the three I'd sort of read up on, um, and I fell in with the Edgestalker players out of character, and they sort of convinced me to go with about a week's notice at that. So obviously, I rolled in with them. So that was Navari. But I figured being from the Brass Coast gives me sort of an excuse to explain if I don't quite know what's going on my first time there. And it was fun to sort of work a few things in with a role play. Like there was you might remember there was a mass casting of Merciless Wrath of the Reaver,
Yes. Yep.
pretty close to timeout, because of
Oh, so
course we needed to stump on
stomp on
Herkinia and
Brickland.
Karunin, and because
Yep.
the heirs were coming. So I went to the Vate in our group, and I was like, I need some mana for this ritual. And he handed me mana. I was like, how much? Because of course, in the Brass Coast, everything has a price. And he says, for the good of the nation. And I just sort of blanked at him.
How
Um,
much is that worth?
yeah,
Tell me more.
yeah. Um, but yeah, no, that sort of thing. It's fun as it finds its way in, and most of it was sort of entirely natural. It wasn't sort of having to put it on. That's a great thing about Empire. It's one of those systems where there's never acting. It just flows.
Definitely. Do you find that the way I suppose in my personal case, I like to describe myself as I'm playing as myself, Chris, with a lick of fantasy paint on me. So the way I'm reacting is broadly how I would do if this was, in air quotes, real. Do you do
Yeah,
the same kind of thing, or do you totally dive into a different character?
I think everyone's characters are themselves in a fancy hat. It's just sometimes the hat is very very fancy. Um, yeah. Um, Speaking personally, I think there's always a facet of myself that I'm exploring in a character, even if it's not like obvious. If I'm trying for something really out there, I'm still the one playing them at the end of the day.
Yeah, you do you maybe pick a character trait and sort of dial that up that might be on, level 1 or 2, and then dial that up to 11. So you're still, Matteo, sorry, well, Matteo Edgestalker is Daniel for 9 out of 10 of your, let's call them traits, but then the 10th one is something wild and unexpected.
I don't think it's ever quite as conscious as that, but that's how things tend to play out. Yeah,
Nice. It might shock and surprise you, but OC, I'm not a criminal. So that
I
is was the dialed up part.
never even crossed my mind.
So someone did actually ask that on the server. They DM'd me, and they essentially are, not going to name names, but they asked, why did you get into that side of the game and always had like an OC relationship with it. And I was like, sorry, what do you mean? No, I can comfortably say I've never shot an OC ambassador. But anyway, sidetracking. So
Sidetracking.
the so you've got a really cool backstory there. Lovely bit of sort of like like multicultural, almost like I don't want to use the word spice, but I'm just imagining like a grind of freeborn pepper over your Navarre
Yeah,
salad,
a
you
bit of
could say.
spice. I think spice is appropriate. The spice gardens of Feroz, you know.
Yeah, and you've become a proxy for
Hmm.
Hakinia, and you've done that in the
Yep.
space of three live events. Like, what's that journey been like? Because I'm not particularly involved in the political game, but being a senator is just as important as being a sort of a general. And on that military side, I understand there's loads of competition for it. I'm sure it's the same on the political side. What's it been like being a proxy, and what got you into that kind of political game?
So I rocked up not sure whether I wanted to do sort of military stuff or political stuff. Um, I uh, I spent a lot of E4, which was my first, obviously, hanging around military council.
Mm,
But Lowry Edgestalker from my striding was previously the proxy senator for Hakinia. So I tagged along to Senate a few times with her, and I enjoyed watching. Um, of course, over the longest dark, a bunch of stuff happened, and some of that was Lowry and Pan, who was our brand, went into retirement because the players needed a year off. They couldn't be dealing with the transport from Dundee sort of thing. It's a trek.
definitely
Um,
a long walk on the trots.
yeah. So the position was vacant, sort of. There were a couple of proxies, I think. But I decided, I want to get into the politics game. There was a lot of talk over the longest dark on a bunch of the servers and forums and groups and whatever. Um, Jokes about disposing of the briars. That was rather a hot topic.
Was it trying
So I
to chuck
figured,
the briar on the fire? Chuck the briar on the fire, I believe was one.
yeah, that sort of thing. So I figured, well, Feroz went and tragicked my backstory. May as well tragic it a bit harder. So I got chatting with another player who was going to be rolling in at E1, um, who'd got a bit of a thing against Briars and had been fighting in Herkinia, where Matteo had been. Of course, all the units that fought in Herkinia took penalties for being slaughtered a bit by the heirs.
Just a bit.
Um, so we worked out, well, Mateo's unit had been hunting down some heirs, driving back some Valon spawn. They were in a fight, and they hear another Navari unit coming up behind them. This player's unit, who I won't name the player because Spice is going to be flowing at E3.
Oh, excellent.
But so we think, oh great, another Navari unit. Let's signal them; they'll come and help. And they turn up and they shout, "Fuck the Briars!" and start laying into us. And Mateo's boyfriend Keo is slain, defending the injured at the back. And Enchantress Olivia of the House Sepulture from Dawn came riding it. Well, not riding in because the horses are dead. High God ate them all, but charging into our rescue, drove them off. So
That is mega spicy. That is
it
awesome.
is
There's a bit of
it is the
backstory. That's
big
great.
spicy.
Oh,
But I played with that a bit at Shadow of a Fallen Queen, which was a player event back in, I want to say, October last year. Um, and between sort of the responses to that and a lot of the chat on field, I figured, what, I'm gonna go push the politics stuff, see what changes Matteo can affect in this sphere.
mm.
And there was already a bunch of spicy stuff going on anyway, and I want to see what impact I can make on the game. So it was going to go one way or the other, but that's what pushed me towards the Senate stuff. Um, I got chatting with Corey Wayfarer at Symposium on the Valorn, which was in February.
Yeah.
Um, and Corey and Riz were talking. Riz is the current senator for Hakinia. And Riz was thinking of stepping down and was talking about, Corey stepping up. And I was like, well, if you're stepping up, how's about I be your proxy? I have an interest here. I'd like to, put my name forward. So we chatted through the event. He was like, why do you want to be proxy? What is your ambition? And we had a chat about that. I was like, well, I don't want to be senator yet. I want to be proxy so I can learn how to do it. I was like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. So, of course, the election rolls around at E1, and someone's convinced Riz to stand again. I throw in behind Corey. Riz wins by a fair handful. And I go over to congratulate him, and he says, hey, do you still want to be proxy? I was like, sure. So that's how I ended up as proxy. And then, of course, last event, Riz's player was at a wedding, so Riz was also at a wedding. So not at Anvil. Which meant I, having sat in the gallery for a whole of 2 Senate sessions, found myself suddenly acting senator for Hakinia without a proxy of my own. And so it was a packed event.
Quite
But it
a
was,
sink or swim scenario, right?
yeah, I think I held my own reasonably. I was going to put in a Senate motion about so the senators agreed that to fund the upkeep for Navarre's new army, they would construct a Bose resource in Leathaven and then cede it to the Bose, so it's an imperial auction position. And that needed building. So I was going to raise that as my Senate motion, but of course the whole thing with Leathaven's kicked off.
Mm.
So I had a chat with the Master of the Min about it, and name bad with names. Martin, who plays
Longest Path.
Yep, Travid.
Yep.
Travid Longest Path, who's senator for Thurunin, was very helpful. Pointing me. They and Matteo do not see eye to eye a lot of the time, but we get on. And he was very helpful. So we had a chat with the Master of the Min and decided, that can wait for next summit because we won't know what's going on with Leathav until next summit. So I ended up raising a motion for appointing an Imperial Spy Master, which Bernard Dugdale, public hero and/or war criminal, won.
Is that the infamous white cap?
That is the infamous white cap. He's wearing a blue cap now, but yes, that is the infamous.
I don't like the rebranding. Yeah, white cap was so easy. We've all learned it.
Yeah.
Blue cap now. It's a nice cap. Don't get me wrong. It's got some nice badges on it, but
very
white
shiny.
cap just was just the OG.
Flows off the tongue.
Yeah, the protagonist of the Empire is how he always introduces himself. I suppose that hasn't changed too much, but yeah.
It doesn't seem to have. But yeah, no, and I'm vaguely friendly with again, name left my head, but is his player. We've had a few chats. OC.
Oh, with Martin.
Good sort. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Martin's lovely. Yeah, he's
Oh no, not Martin. Yes, Martin, who is lovely. But no, Bernard Dugdale's player.
Oh, Jonathan Howard. Where?
Yeah, something like that. Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so.
I should really have a list of people's names before I do shout outs, because I am name blind and face blind, which you can imagine makes me great for networking.
Yeah, I think with Jonathan, he's an avid World War II historian, and I think gosh, it might be 2 or 3 years ago now. I remember him doing a little bit of a drunk stream on Facebook.
Love it.
But yeah, very very entertaining chap. So you've stepped up into the role of senator within just a single event at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
You've appointed an Imperial Spy Master. You've been talking to the Master of the Mint. I don't want to say is there anything else, but is there anything else that sort of happens in the life of a senator, especially when you're so fresh to the scene?
It was a lot of walking. Thankfully, between Riz and Travid, a lot of the bureaucracy had already kind of gotten sorted out for me. Like I had a second lined up. We knew vaguely where I'd give mine. So it was just a matter of getting motions written out and submitted and that sort of thing. It helps that I already knew a few of the senators. We'd got chatting at assorted player events. So I wasn't in a room of complete strangers, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, it was fun times, chill times. I made some new connections, you know. I've found myself an ambition for what I want. If I as proxy, and then if I go for senator, I want to create a ministry for getting Abraxas stones
Oh, fantastic. Yep. Yep.
because we need one of those. I've suggested that the Highborn might do similar because, of course, the Grey Pilgrims they're with us now, and for all I'd like to be selling them Abraxas stones and getting their sweet virtue cash into the nation. I'd also like to sort of get them to Navari first, you know, because we are largely the ones off in the miasma doing the Valorn stuff. It would be great if we did not all get venomed and or turn into husks every time we go in.
It's nice.
That'd
Can
be
confirm.
tasty.
Yeah, I not this character. Oh gosh, years ago, got my hands on one for a skirmish, and when they're saying, you're venomed, they went immune and lifted the necklace off my chest. Very satisfying. So can confirm if you get those onto the field, whoever's wearing them does feel a bit like a god,
Yeah,
anti-miasma
it's
god.
big tasty.
Yeah.
I managed to commission one myself at the end of the event, so I should be getting that at E3. Which yes, happy fun times.
Oh yeah.
I will. Yep.
It gives you opportunity to also have just a beautiful piece of jewelry as well.
Mm.
Something really really snazzy, but perhaps is not necessarily Navari, because I think oh the vague description I can remember is quite silvery in appearance.
Yeah, sort of silvery white gem set into yeah. Of course, it is in fact very Navari. That's where they have their history. They were used in old Taruniel as gifts to visiting dignitaries, as sort of a here. This is our promise that we won't like stab you up and poison you and stuff. Um, and yeah,
Because we
that's
physically
the
can't.
history on those.
Yeah, it's nice to get those kind of jewelry pieces out. So they just add so much to a character. Let alone
Yeah.
the game effects there. They're pretty awesome. Do you have any advice or some top? You can't spill all the beans, of course, but any top tips for players trying to get into the political game?
Yeah, just talk to people. I find the people who go for hats, whatever they are, usually they're very excited about having a hat and they like to talk about it. And the people who are chasing the big game tend to want to make it so that other people can also chase the big game, you know, because it's more play to bandy around. So yeah, no, if there's a hat you want, go talk to the people with the hat. Ask if they need a proxy. Ask if you can shadow them. If they're busy in a conversation, maybe just leave a note. Um, you know, and most of them will probably be quite happy to talk to you back. Um, yeah, it's much more easy to get in that sphere than I thought it would be. Of course, it helps having gone to some player events, but that's by no means a requirement. It's just it got me meeting the people I needed to meet rather
Hmm.
than chasing them across the field at Anvil. You know, um,
Yeah, the same as if the people who've not gone to those player events but been to a few more mainline events, for example.
yeah, it's just a matter of networking. Talk to the people you want to talk to, and this is me who's bad at networking.
With the names and the faces, right?
Yeah, with the names and the faces. Uh,
I've also heard from a certain senator, Rizart, that apparently offering to go and grab a drink or a snack for a certain hat is often a good way to get in their good books. Would you agree?
yes, I would wholeheartedly agree. I commandeered one of my striding mates several times during the event. I was like, "Here is my credit card. Please go get me food. I haven't sat down since this morning. I need to eat something." Speaking of not sitting down, so of course they took the roof off the Senate building because
Yep.
COVID ventilation
Yeah,
stuff.
makes sense.
Um, but that sun at E2, standing in Senate, just glaring down, we were all sort of up with the shade with the fans and the little pamphlets that the Looking Glass were doing, sort of blinding. It'd be great if they could get like some canvas over the top or something, so it's still airy, but there's some shade. I might write them an email and suggest that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it feels a little bit ironic considering the temperatures we've had today, complaining about the heat. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was a lovely event, beautiful weather, but
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time with my bandana just was soaked in water. It's a sort of proxy cooler, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, walking around in the sun, especially for people who've got lineage and have a lot of makeup on.
Yep.
Yeah, or the, the Imperial Orcs. Let's be real; those lot are just melting inside their masks.
I
But
know the Summer Sirens had uh, sort of changeling spiral sunburns for weeks afterwards.
I've never done it myself. I've always wondered if that how that looks afterwards. Was it pretty clear?
Yeah, it was if you knew what you were looking for, pretty distinct, you know.
Trying to explain that in the office the week after. Like, what's that spiral? Let's have a coffee break.
Yeah,
It's going to take more than 30 seconds to explain why. I can
yeah.
explain what it is, but why is a much more in-depth question. Brilliant. So we've got set up a senator. Well, from proxy to a senator to a proxy senator. Subtle but important
Hmm.
difference. Sorry to keep the people listening in waiting, but just before we jump into that wild Saturday night skirmish, where you became the hero of Navarre, um, was there any? Can you tell us like a bit more about the lead up to that skirmish? Because from what I'd heard on the rumor mill and just chatting to people, is that you'd said, "Oh, my family is out there," because I was actually at the gate as well with some of the Black Scar, sort of more scouty types. So we'd all got sort of grouped up, cammed up, ready to go sneaky, sneaky, stabby, stabby. And like you said on your hots and knots, which I have in front of me, we did have to beg, steal, and borrow our way onto that skirmish and got a
Yeah.
couple places. Anyway, I heard that his family is from there, and I thought, a Navari with a family in Feroz. I mean, that was kind of band shtick, but that was technically true, but not actually true. So it kind of like struck me as a bit odd. But now you've explained your backstory, totally makes sense.
Hmm.
How did you end up sort of getting involved with that skirmish?
So I was sort of getting into the skirmish martial stuff back at E1. Didn't really partake at E2, but I was keeping my eyes on the skirmishes that came out, and I was like, oh, for Roz, well that's important to my character. I'm going to do the legwork and make sure it's got the people it needs to go. So Saturday afternoon, between Senate sessions, I went and had a chat with the Hand of Guerra, who was the named handler for that, because the civil service have made choices recently.
More on
And they
that in a
were they were
second.
they were happy for the help. I said, do you have the numbers you need? It's like I don't know. We think so. I was like, well, I can rally you a bunch of Navari Thorns and bring them down. It was like, yeah, that'd be great. If you meet us here near the gate at this time, I think it was 10. Because the thing went out at 10:30. It was like, yeah, meet us at 10. Be prepared that most of you might get turned away because obviously a lot of freeborn will want to go on this. Um, I don't think the Brass Coast has many sort of skirmish fighters.
Or stealthy
So it
ones at
was
that. Gosh, yeah. Sorry, go on,
all
but
the
I've got a
jingling.
bone to pick. Yep, yep, that.
So it was odds on maybe a few of us would go, but most of us probably wouldn't. So I went and had a chat in Navarre. I asked the Thorn Fang. I went and asked Black Scar. Like, this is going on. Do you want to get on it? Um, so I borrowed some leather armor because I don't have sort of medium armor. I've got my I don't know if you've seen my nice sort of great coat in the suede, which is technically light armor, kind of.
Oh, fantastic. Yep, yep. I think I have.
24,000 hand stitches in that thing over the longest arc. It was a long project.
Oh, you made that
Um,
yourself?
yes.
Oh, fantastic. Oh,
Um,
brilliant. Sorry, I'm a bit of a kit
so
nerd.
I,
Brilliant.
I did one up on in fake suede on a sewing machine before my first event, and it was fine enough. But over the longest arc, I took that apart to get a pattern and bought in the suede, and yeah, made it again in better material, which is going to be a running theme because I've got that light armor and then I've got heavy armor. I sold my chainmail because I can't cope with the weight anymore, and I
Yep.
got some steel lamellar, sort of second or third hand from a reenactor,
Oh, sexy.
which is
Like,
really nice. It's great for my posture. It feels nice when it's on. But lugging it back and forth in the suitcase from Scotland on public transport, it's not great. So I've now spent an inadvisable amount on aluminium scales, which I'm now assembling into a duplicate that's mithril. So it's lighter and it won't destroy me physically getting it to the events.
fantastic. Yeah,
I've
lavender
I've
armor is
spent
just it's, I think, personal opinion, sexiest looking armor out there.
very sexy.
Yeah, scales
I've
are so
spent
fantasy.
too much time sort of sanding individual scales, blackening them so they don't look horrendously shiny. And like, there's nothing wrong with the very shiny look, very clearly mithril, which is fine. But I figure an Avari's probably going to darken it down a bit because I don't want to be blinking like a signal mirror when I'm sneaking through the bush.
Mm.
Um,
Or like a freeborn
so
scout.
yeah. So anyway, I borrowed some leather armor from assorted people in the Thornborn. So it didn't quite fit. Some of it was sort of breaking down a little bit, but I got it on. And I went to Senate in that because I had to run for it right after. So I rock up in my borrowed leather armor, and there's all these Navari have turned up, and I'm like, great, that's a massive turnout. Turns out like 2 or so were needed.
Yeah, literally two.
But I get chatting with the. So the skirmish was 30 people, and it was being split into a 12-person stealth team and an 18-person sort of reinforcement team. Credit to the Freeborn, they dispensed with the bells and the jingle jangle armor. So they each had sort of someone in command, and I went and talked to both of those and were like, look, can I get on this? This is important to me. And they were like, maybe we'll just queue up at the back. And I was like, okay, so I'm not getting on this. The skirmish was 2 Zemrys Islanders had been smuggling citizens out of Feroz so that the Grendel could not make them thralls and cart them off to the salt mines, and had now themselves gotten stuck behind Grendel lines. And if the Grendel caught them, they themselves would be going to the salt mines for an extended duration. But if we could rescue them, then that was firstly, good job, well done, yay, and also 1,000 additional military strength provided by the Zemrys Islanders to the evacuation of Feroz, which was one of the downtime options.
So is that the one that went ahead? Because I think there was insurgency, evacuation, and then passive, from what I remember.
We went ahead with the smuggling people out rather than the violating the treaty horrendously and fighting people out.
Sure. Yep.
Now, I'd rocked up to E3 expecting that I was going to spend most of the event stumping to get all the Navari fleets and military units to go help out with that. And then, of course, I got the scouting report from Leathavan, and I was like, oh, we have different priorities now. As it
Feroz?
turns
Never
out,
heard of it.
the Feroz liberation was oversubscribed, and it seems like we might not have hit our targets on Leathavan, which will be a shame. But I figured, well, this is the way I can contribute to that. So I was like, yeah, I've done my part. I got the spares they needed. They'll be fine. They look reasonably prepared for a stealth raid. That one over there is in fact disguised as a Navari, or I suppose guising as a Navari. It's like, yes,
Yes, I
sensible
remember seeing
idea.
him. Yeah, itching at his clothes.
And then I heard someone say they might have refugees with them. We've been told they might have refugees with them. And then I thought, oh shit, that could be my parents. And suddenly it was like, no, I need to go on this skirmish. So when they were all lined up and I clearly didn't have a place, I went to one of the few Navari on it
It
and
was
was like,
Loth Lane,
would
sort of beard, dark brown hair.
sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
our brand. Yeah, he was going on with Jockle, another one of ours, and sort of Lottie came back to us before the skirmish went through. So yeah, you'll have swapped out with him.
Yeah. I was like, can you, if you wouldn't mind stepping down, my family might be out there. I feel I need to go on this. And so, he did. And I stepped in, and there was a freeborn, another Briar, another member of the Order of the Hawth, formerly known as the Bryat, beside me, and then the freeborn disguised as Navari in front. And they were both like, "This is my first skirmish," and I was like, "Oh, okay, you two stick with me." And yeah, off we went. Kerowin Edgestalker, who was until last event the National Hospital representative, and is sort of my right hand, keeping me on the straight and narrow. And Patches Tanglehorn, Imperial Drug Lord, had a plan that if everything went totally wrong, Patches was going to walk in and try to sell the Grendel substances. So they were at the back as Plan C distraction unit, and they bounced off the gate, which was very sad for them, and kind of for us because I really wanted to see that actually. But in we go. We're told, someone meets us just through, and we're told the islanders you're looking for, they have a lantern. They'll be flashing it on and off to attract your attention. All these other lanterns you see moving around, Grendel patrols, try to avoid them. There's a fort up that way. There's one over there. Don't die. I was like, great. This is good for us. Yeah, this will be fine. This will be no problem. So off we and the stealth team go, sort of sneaking along the path. Keeping low in the brush, in the long grass, crawling over the wood chip. It was a big nasty puddle that we went around.
Nice.
And sort of the group slowly gets spread out as sort of the hangers on at the end get almost spotted, and they have to stay still, and the rest of the group moves on. And it's very tense for a few minutes. We're not making much progress, but eventually, best I can work out, we end up sort of there's like a big bush between us and one of the Grendel forts. And we can hear them talking inside. Anyway, someone skips across the road, the path in front of us, and gets behind a tree. Like, right, so I follow him. I get behind a tree, and then a Grendel patrol comes up around the back of the stealth group, spots them, and I hear a bit of a commotion, and it sounds like the Grendel are all coming out of the fort. And best I can work out, they are then sort of rolled back to the gate. Once all the Grendel are clear, I go over to that other tree and see if I can find the person who came across with me, and they were gone. At which point, there's a bit more noise going on, and between what I could work out and what I've been told from afterwards, the Grendel rolled the stealth team back to the reinforcements, and then they all got kicked out the gate.
Yeah, we
Which left
were
me,
stood on the other side. They came out maybe about 10 minutes before you did.
which left me all alone, deep in the woods, in the dark, with the entire sort of Grendel force between me and the gate. And I was like, right, okay, well, I came here to do a job. Next objective, find the islanders, and then we'll see what happens from there. Matteo is a pilgrim of courage. He's a knight of the Blue Rose, follows Gilda Ashwine, and for more personal reasons, also Araz, the Liberator, former emperor, and possible reincarnation of Gilda Ashwine, it turns out.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, Araz would not abandon these people. Gilda would face down the odds. I'm going to do the same. Going to go find them. So I leg it up the length of the woods, sort of between mad sprints and scrambling through the long grass. Don't find anyone. No sign of any land. So I turn around and head back, and as I do, I almost fall right over the islanders. They're sort of huddled in a bush. Again, no sign of any lantern. I don't know if that was if they failed to pick it up, or if there wasn't enough going spare, or if it was another one of those fun little misleading japes that PD are putting into the skirmish briefs of late.
Misleading japes. Fantastic way of
There's a
putting it.
lot of those of late. They're fine. They're fine. They're good. Anyway, so I was like, you're the islanders. They were like, yes. I'm like, cool, I'm here to get you out. They were like, just you? I was like, it seems like it. So we sort of made slow progress, keeping sort of to the edge, following the path, staying in the brush, having a bit of a chat. Clearly, these islanders, they were scared out of their minds. Don't blame them, but they were still going, So I take I have two sort of family heirlooms for Matteo. I've got a nice falcata with a golden horse head hilt from Saxon Violence, which I call Chainbreaker. And I've got a sort of faded silver silk scarf. And the idea is these are family heirlooms. And I take the scarf from my belt and I hold it out to these islanders and I say, I don't know for certain, but I've always been told that this belonged to Araz because Araz is actually Mateo's great grandmother's cousin. Is a thing. PD recently confirmed that for me. That was great. So I've been
Ooh,
piecing together
brilliant.
the family tree, doing a wiki dive. But anyway, so I hold it out to them and I say, this. I'm told this belonged to Araz. Draw on his courage, and they did. They clung to it. They were like, yes, this will get us through it. So we make our way back. And we're coming up on, I think it was some sort of clearing, and there's a bunch of lanterns. It's the Grendel patrols, and they're talking about, stabbed an Imperial. We kicked them out. Yeah, none of them left. So I was like, shit. Okay. So I turned to the islanders. I said, look, go back up the path. I'm going to throw myself at this lot, cause a distraction. When you hear that, make a break for the gate. If I have to die to get you out, then that's what it takes. So up they go back up the path, and I get ready to make my assault on the Grendel. And then, do you want the OC account of what happened? Account of what happened.
Oh, let's go IC first. This is I'd say it feels IC. I'm sat on the edge of my seat at the moment, so let's go for the IC version. Then OC we can clarify anything that might be confusing.
So I've got my spear. I'm thinking, okay, how many of these can I take out? How loud can I be? How much time can I give them? And just as I'm about to step out into the clearing, the patrols break and they go back to their patrolling. I'm like, oh, that's convenient. So I scurry back up the path and I find the islanders again, and we make our way towards sort of the main path through the woods with the wood chip, because that's the only way out back to the gate.
Mm.
But there's patrols either side. We can see the lanterns just off the road. There's the occasional one walking back and forth. There's no way we're not getting seen. So we start sort of creeping along in the long grass. No one stops us. Okay, so we stand so we can move easier. No one stops us. We keep going. And eventually we are just striding unafraid down the middle of the road, and we slip between these patrols like we're shadows. They just don't see us. We walk back through the gate. I raise my spear high and shout, Feroz is waiting, and there's just a few moments of silence as sort of Patches had apparently been shouting at the gate, Grendel, I'll pay you whatever ransom, give us Matteo back. Kerwin had tried to sort of drag her away from the gate. She was like, no, I have to stay here, I have to wait for him. And there was just this moment of silence as everyone was like, oh, they're back. Oh, that's the islanders. Oh, and then it just erupted into cheers and celebration and stuff. I got testimonied Unseen Saviour,
Brilliant name.
which was the big tasty. I was told I was not going to be paying for a drink in the Freeborn camp for quite some time. Several people have asked for interviews to write articles. The Key is doing one. The Hawthorne is doing one. There's a few bards are asking for the story. Rego Izemrus, who did my testimony, is composing a piece to say to tell at Songs and Stories. Kiara, the senator for Madruga, formerly senator for Feroz, has asked that I swing by the Brass Coast equivalent of Standing early
It's
next
landing,
summer
isn't it?
and give my account. So that's that was that. I went and did an interview in the Gilded Vine, and then we headed back to Songs and Stories. It was a fun evening.
But yeah, we our contingent had got maybe halfway down the hill, sort of the main sort of traders highway in Anvil. We got halfway down and we heard the cheers from when you'd come through, so we ran up to the gate and we saw this flash mob kicking off, and extremely cool moment, extremely cool. What would so that was the IC side. Is there like a slightly different account OC as well?
Yes. So the OC side is again. I had my spear. I was getting ready to step out into the clearing and strike. I was thinking, how many can I take down? How much noise can I make? And then a ref wanders past, shouting, "All the players are gone. The skirmish is done. Report in." I was like, "Hello." Oh, I was like, "Yeah, no player here. There's one of us left." And the ref was like, "Oh, we made a mistake. Okay. I was like, I got the Islanders. I was nearly there. They were like, you were nearly there. Do you want to die horribly, or would you like to go back through? I'd love to go back through. Like, cool, take the islanders with you. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, sure. No, you've earned it. I was like, great. They were like, make a miraculous escape. So I made a miraculous escape. Yeah, no, it was
That what a
it was
choice.
it was very cool of them to give me that opportunity. Ah, you know, um, or you're trapped and need ransoming. They gave me leeway to play with it, and I'm very glad they did. Obviously, it felt excellent. My ego has swelled massively, so now it's like average size. But it made a lot of game for other people as well, just from all the reactions and partying and all that was going on, and people writing articles, and that's all stuff for them as well as for me, which is always good. Share the fun around.
Absolutely. And did you get followed? Did you wait? Were you able to follow up on that set of free drinks in the Brass Coast? A very rare
Yes,
commodity.
yes, I went straight to the Gilded Vine with Rego Izemris and the islanders I'd rescued and my dear Carol. Um, and sat, told the story, had some Syrah. Um, yeah, that was that. It was good. They put a motion through the assembly the next day, reward of a throne from the Virtue Fund. Apparently, they wanted to go higher, but it was late in the event, so they were like, "We'll go for what we can get." Turns out the fund was already well expended by that point, so I got no monies. But the former High Bard wrote me a letter, which I have here somewhere. Tiana Izedni Requeza wrote me a letter, and did in fact include one throne, paying my rewarding out of their own funding, which was very nice of them.
Fantastic. Great.
And asking for the story, which is a thing that I need to write and send. I owe so many people letters. I have not written any letters yet. Not this season anyway. So
Maybe once
that's
the
on my to-do list.
yeah, maybe once the keen bug kicks in, sort of, I
Mm.
find it's like about a week or a week and a half beforehand, and suddenly writing letters on the train or sort of at night before you go
Yeah.
to bed just starts to flow, hopefully.
Mm.
So with being the unseen savior, I've got that correct.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, that's the title of the episode. Done. Easy.
Excellent.
What do you feel like it's gonna? What do you feel the vibe is gonna be of the Freeborn next event? And do you see yourself, I guess, having not a repeat of E2, but a repeat of the activities, so being an active proxy, or do you see yourself going over to the Freeborn camp and enjoying their hospitality for a fair while?
I mean, I intend to do my duty as proxy. I've taken on the role. I'm loyal to my word. That's a thing that the Freeborn and the Navari have in common, in very different ways. Uh, but yeah, actually, I sat in on the Courage Assembly for the first time at E2. Hashtag not a priest, but they let me sit in and talk, and I gave them the lowdown on the Valor soul situation. Um, but they held the election for Champion of Courage. I was like, "Is anyone interested?" I was like, "I am interested, but I won't be standing." They were like, "Why?" I was like, "Well, I already have a job to do. I can't just walk out in that."
Mm.
Um, my unwelcome truth is that I have greater priorities. Uh, so that was yes. No, I fully intend to do my job, be proxy, challenge for senator at some point. It's fun. I want to keep doing it, but I do intend to be spending more time, in the Brass Course camp and in the Navarre camp for that matter. I completely missed most of the spring festivities because I did not sit down for the whole event. I was doing senator and proxy job and had a few other things going on, scheming and whatnot. Um, so yeah, I'll be taking things a little more chill, get on a few more skirmishes, although I don't see any going quite so spectacularly as that one, not for a while. Um,
It might be the start of a long and successful chain of skirmishes, to the point we
it
either deploy a unit or Matteo.
it might, or I might just die, which would be a shame. But if it's a good ending, then uh, funny you mentioned unit. I'm getting in with the Dread Shields, which is Rook's
Yes,
new
yes.
project. I'm sort of seconding them as well. So that's of course Rook isn't going to be at E3. So I'll go from stepping up as senator to stepping up as organizing the Dread Shields, and that'll be a thing. I intend to take it easy where I can and spend more time in both Navarre and the Freeborn camp. The vibe was very much sort of a homecoming for Matteo. After that, he does maintain that joining Navarre is one of the most Guerra things he ever did, and whatever else he may be, he will always be a Freeborn. So this was, it was good to have that sort of reconnection to the nation, because I'd made a lot of friends in the Brest course, sort of over the longest dark. Ezro and the rest of the Seed Last Tide. Ezro is now Fleetmaster. That was
Yep. No more Esteban.
Yep. That was a happening at E. We are pleased when our friends do well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, but this was very much I am back there and people know who I am, and it's Navarre has a very family vibe, and it was wild being swept up in that same vibe with a different nation for an evening.
And what a well-placed piece of backstory.
Mm.
I've never
It's
seen an
become
account
very
that's
relevant.
so perfectly fitted to that skirmish and it going so well. Uh, like you said, most people's backstories don't even get read out or read by anybody apart from the person who created them. But to have your piece, come out into the foreground and actually be relevant, it's awesome. Awesome bit of
Yeah,
placement.
it was very big moment. Very happy it happened.
And I guess on the topic of stepping up to the moment and these kind of responsibilities, I also understand that you've recently become a brand for your
Yes.
striding. What's that been like, and what's the story behind that?
So the Edgestalkers was founded several years ago, but not vastly long ago. It's a fairly young striding by unpronounceable Welsh name that is shortened to Pan. Pan was our brand. He is known as the Summer Wolf, named after a bit of old Hercynian legend about a wolf with the changeling lineage. Pan is a changeling, so became the Summer Wolf, metaphorically, not literally.
Gotcha.
So Pan founded the striding with his brothers and his wife, and assorted friends. And the idea was, well, they used the Trods to patrol the borders along Skarzind, because that was still the bad kind of orc territory at the time, and Hanmark, and keep Hercynia safe, render aid on the road, that sort of thing. Hence, Edgestalkers.
Gotcha. Oh, great, great name.
We look after Thorns Pass, which is a sort of warehouse village type thing up in the mountains in North Pines, and we're based out of the Den, which is a sort of cave system turned home
A den, you could
that
say.
only Edgestalkers get to know the location of. It's where we keep our briars and our non-coms and people who need looking after,
Oh, brilliant.
including Pan's young daughter. Pan's brothers and wife are now dead. That happened over the course of several events. I think one of them bit the dust on a skirmish on the Friday of the first event of the Edgestalkers attending, which was a thing. This was long before my time. My first event was E4 2019, which I think I mentioned. But yes, so Pan and Pan's player were not at E4 2019, and as of the end of the Longest Dark, they are taking at least a year's sort of break from Empire, because, as mentioned, the trek from Dundee, it's awful, as is Lowry, who was sort of held the strings and very much guided me through my first event, and was the previous proxy for Hercynia. So they are out of the picture from now. They have quote unquote retired and are staying at the Den, having wholesome family vibes. So we needed a brand on field. So I swore into the striding properly on Friday at Time Inn, and Friday night I took the brand. I had been considering doing it at Songs and Stories before the fateful fire toppling incident. Um,
Fire toppling?
yeah, someone got up to dance during one of the songs and crashed into the big fireball, and it toppled over and was a whole thing.
I mean,
We
what way to set fire to the dance floor? Or this album is
Yeah,
fire. Insert hot meme here. Great, cool. Got that
yeah.
out of my system. I feel better. Thanks.
You are more than welcome. But yes, so me and Kerwin instead snuck away to the Thornfangs campfire. We borrowed that, took my brand. It was a moment. It was yeah. I've slipped into it much more easily than I thought. Sort of people are looking to me for advice on the big decisions. The Edgestalkers are reasonably independent. We all go do our own thing, but we all come back together a few times each day and chat the gossip,
Mm.
and sort of being looked at as someone to be sort of responsible and well informed and reliable. Uh, Not something I'm used to, but it's fitting me quite well, I'm finding. And the others certainly seem to think so and keep telling me I'm doing a good job, so I'm inclined to believe them. Uh, yeah, it's been good. It's been good for Matteo as well. It's given him sort of the boost he needed to find his place.
Gotcha. Would you say you prefer brand or non-brand playtime?
So I'm still technically a thought get out on many skirmishes now. I haven't done the battles this year, um, just because I've needed a little longer in the mornings to sort of pull myself into some semblance of being alive.
Yeah.
I had COVID, got over it about 2 weeks before E1, and then got laryngitis,
Oh,
and then
yeah,
got a
done.
chest infection. So E1 was awful, and I'm still recovering.
Yeah, that'll knock it out of you.
So I'm doing less thorning and more branding now. They're both good. They're both fun. There's definitely been a shift in both attitude and priorities for Matteo since taking the brand, though.
Do you find, what would you say the brand duties are? Because obviously it changes from striding to striding, but in your case, how have you found being a brand actually affects your day-to-day activities?
Yeah, I mean the Navarre archetypes are all a bit sort of loose in
Yeah,
definition,
very
shall we
broad.
say? The brand most of all, but it's largely I view being a brand as serving a group rather than leading directly. Leadership does come with it, but it's about doing what's best for them rather than yourself.
Mm.
So Matteo swore to serve Striding and Nation and Empire. Um, so the ambitions of Striding or Nation or Empire come before his own now, which is not a lack of personal ambition. There's still plenty of that, but it's a different perspective. It's being responsible for others and helping them get where they need to be. It's not dissimilar from a guide in the sense of helping people find their place in the great dance, although it's much less priesty. I do enjoy chatting shit about the virtues. Got some spicy takes, not heretical spicy takes,
Of course not, of course
but
not.
spicy takes nonetheless. Um, but yeah, no, it's nice helping other people do their thing and finding my own place within that.
Fantastic. And I guess as we're sort of pulling towards the 1 hour mark, sort of finding your place, the last thing I wanted to ask you about was your drinks. I know we mentioned them at the start, so feel free, shameless plug for your distillery, your brewery, however you're describing it. But I've met a few people who brew their own. Travid, longest path, Martin,
Mhm.
he does a lot of brewing himself. Like how easy is it, and how do you get the flavors in? Because I've never touched it myself, apart from the end result and drinking it. Um, What's it like to brew?
So I got into mixology, sort of cocktails and stuff, quite early in lockdown, um, and have slightly hyper focused over the longest dark, which is why I'm now not drinking till E3 because I need to shift this beer gut. Um, but part of that, part of came with that was sort of doing infusions and that sort of thing, making my own syrups and liqueurs, and so we now have Edgestalker infusions. So I made a batch of cherry brandy back during the
Oh,
longest dark, and then I took it to Laughter in the Cold Midwinter, which was the Durandal player event, and it the bottle disappeared within the first night, as in all got drunk, not as in someone lifted it.
mm.
It was very well received, and by the time I got to the Gilded Horn Carter, um, there was no brandy left. So I think it's Rafaela handed me 4 crowns and said, "This is consider this an investment, because I've gotten talking about the cherry brandy. I want to do a bacon washed whiskey, which is you get bacon fat and you stick it in your whiskey, immersion blend it to get all mixed up, and then you chill it. So the fat then forms a puck on the top that you can lift out.
Okay.
So you're not drinking fat or anything, but it's imparted all the bacon flavor in booze. Um,
Oh,
so I was talking about that. I came across a cocktail called the Earl Grey Martini, um, which is an Earl Grey gin sour that was sort of the signature drink of the Pegu Club cocktail bar in New York, which is unfortunately one of the casualties of uh, lockdown.
ah,
But they were very, very sort of on the edge of the cocktail resurgence in New York, and the Earl Grey Martini was designed as a drink for people who don't like gin to get them to like gin. So it's Tanqueray infused with Earl Grey tea, um, lemon, sugar, sort of very, very, very pretty. Usually an egg white as well,
oh, love to get that
which gives it a
frothiness.
sort of silky mouthfeel and a nice head of foam on top. Very tasty. Um, so I quite enjoyed those. So I was like, I'll do some Earl Grey gin as well. Earl Beaumont, because I had a chat with Beaumont. He likes his bergamot. So yeah, Earl Beaumont. Why not? Um, so I got chatting to Raphael about this, and he was like, "Here is for consider it an investment to get yourself going. When you've made your cherry brandies and your bacon whiskies, whatever else, you bring them by the Gilded Horn, and we'll sample them." I was like, "Yeah, sounds good." And then he was like, "You know what Dead Reckoning is, right?" And I was like, "Okay." So at that point, I sort of had to. So yeah, I did a 5 liter batch of the cherry brandy, none of which is sold somehow. Probably because so I'm selling that in 500 ml bottles, and charging a 2 thrones, which I cracked one open as a sample bottle, and Cesare himself does in fact agree that for the right person, 2 thrones is absolutely an acceptable price for this very good cherry brandy. 5 year oak aged cherry brandy, I might say, because I was able to get a hold of some 5 year oak aged brandy on the cheap. So yeah, no, that was that. Um, I did sell pretty much all of the 200 ml bottles. There was the Earl Beaumont, which was Earl Grey gin and a lemon syrup that I'd made by. So I made Oleo Sacrum, which is where you put lemon peel into sugar and it leaches out the oils.
Mhm.
And then I used that and the lemon juice to make a sort of an enhanced lemon syrup, if you will. So that was the old Beaumont. There was Flower Crown because I was playing to the Dornish market for the flower festival. That was I'd found a nice. It was cranberry, raspberry, peach, and pink hibiscus limited edition tea that Sainsbury's were doing. So I'd steeped that in vodka, and that came out brilliant red and very tasty. Briar juice, which was honey bourbon liqueur, which is just a decent-ish bourbon with honey syrup, um, which was very tasty. I'm now experimenting in. I've done a strawberry rum.
Oh,
Um,
Okay. Gosh, these are
which
all these words together is suddenly very thirsty.
mm,
Can't think why.
I need to play about with the ratios. The test batch was considerably too sweet and not quite boozy enough. But I should have a good batch of that ready to go for E3. And just yesterday, I put on a batch of spiced rum. I don't like a lot of sort of on the market spiced rums because usually they have not seen a single spice in their life. They are flavored with sort of syrups and extracts and whatever else, and largely all I ever taste is vanilla or cherry, usually vanilla. Um, I love Kraken,
Yeah, Kraken
but
spiced is nice.
it's not good. Like I very much enjoy it, and the branding helps, but
Mm.
I largely just taste vanilla. So I got a bottle of OVD, which is my guilty pleasure. Old Vatted Demerara. It's a Demerara rum. It's fairly ubiquitous. You can get it in Asda. It's tasty. Um, and I put vanilla in there, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, black pepper, cloves, saffron, uh, cardamom, and what else? Ancho chili flakes. So I'll leave that to sit for a few days. Give it a shake every now and again. Stick it in a cupboard, and we'll see how it comes out. It might be a disaster, or it might be very tasty. Very tasty. Then there'll be some at E3.
Oh, so I mean that was going to be my next and possibly most important question. How and when do we find you to get our hands on these at the event?
Edgestalker infusions will be wandering the field. Probably I will be jingling along with glass bottles in a wicker basket. I was doing the rounds in sort of my free time between Senate sessions, and all very late into the evening. I think Friday or Saturday, Friday evening. I was up until 3. I think my last stop was the Mandela's Arms in the Marches. Um, and I sold dear Senator Watkin some freshly squeezed Earl Beaumont, um, which went down quite well. I sold out of the Earl, a couple of bottles left of the briar juice and the flower crown. Strangely, Dawn turned their noses up a lot at the Earl Beaumont,
Oh,
not at the
really?
taste, just at the name. Apparently, he is more contentious there than I thought. It probably doesn't help that I described it as freshly squeezed from the man himself, but
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
lots of ways of interpreting that.
hmm, it did, yeah, it went down well. Um, I yeah, I might have a limited selection this time. I need to order some more bottles, but yeah, no, I'll be about. I will have the booze.
Brilliant. So
I'll be wandering the camp.
fantastic. So I guess to wrap up, what we've got is a keen politician in the morning, a heroic and courageous warrior in the afternoon, and a keen mixologist in the evening. Quite a set of skills there.
I play along the spectrum.
Brilliant. So I usually try and round these episodes out with like I guess a nugget of wisdom. Beyond, I sort of earlier asked about what's a good way of getting into the politics game, and the answer to talk to people, make those connections, and you'll get in. Do you have any LARPing nuggets of wisdom that have personally for you that made a huge impact or made an important impact on how you play the game in general, both IC and OC? It might be, clean socks, for example.
I think OC, know your limits. Like as someone who is physically quite broken at this point, um, I still like getting into the combat stuff where I can, doing the legwork. It is harder for me, but it's still absolutely doable. So it's very much know your limits, know what's going to tire you out, know what's going to make things unfun, and plan around them. You can absolutely do, in most cases, at least something adjacent to what you want to do. Um, but you need to think hard about how to manage it,
Hmm.
um, which I learned the hard way. It took me far too long, but I got there. I see wisdom. Never make an enemy by mistake.
Oh,
I
that's a
will I
good one.
will I will leave the context open to your guesses. But yes, never make an enemy by mistake.
Fantastic. We've got both the title of the episode and the blurb sorted. You're making my life so easy.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Well, again, Daniel, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed this talk, especially the mixology part. That was I was expecting more talk along the lines of I put some some honey in a tub, but no, that's got me drooling, you could say. Definitely, I'm going to be seeking you out with my new character at E3. And to all
Good.
of you
I'll save
listening
you a bottle.
in, thank you so much for sticking with us, and very much looking forward to catching you next time, and or at E3. So until
Mm,
then, take care, and don't make any enemies by accident. Have I got that right?
you got that right.
Brilliant. All right then. See you all next time.
Yep. Bye, folks.